Okay, and just so you guys know from our perspective, what we're doing is we're talking to a camera, and so it's really kind of awkward. And so, but let's actually start with that. So first of all, welcome to Set High. Welcome to the parent orientation. Kind of our goal for today is to answer any questions that you guys have. We know that you guys have already chosen our school, so we're not here trying to sell you on the school. But we certainly want you guys to be all the cool things that we've been doing recently, and to confirm your correct decision to join our school. And so I think this is kind of case in point, one of the key things that's kind of a differentiator for our school. So what you're right now is we are communicating using our new video conferencing system that will be in every classroom. And we believe that this is what's actually going to be the thing that makes it possible for us to deliver high quality education in these COVID times. And so what's really cool about it, and this is something that's also really important to understand about our school, we're always trying to innovate. And I am pretty certain that the school that you guys graduate from in 4 years, if you're freshman parents coming in, that school is going to look very different from the school that you see now. And the reason is because we are always innovating. We're always trying to find ways to do things better. And so please, if there's ever anything that you feel is not up to your standards, or there's something that you'd like us to do differently, please let us know. We love the feedback. We will not be offended, and we're happy to have honest conversations about ways that we can do things better. I just had a conversation with a parent yesterday about something that we could do better, and I assured the parent that we are going to be spending the summer making sure that whole thing is shoring up. So, perfect example of this is the OWL, which is the video conferencing system that we're using right now. So you guys can probably see it's a 360-degree camera. As we should probably introduce the other two in the room right here. You'll see how the OWL will actually work, and will actually adjust the view to actually focus on the person who's speaking. And so, Mr. McClendon, why don't you introduce yourself?
Good morning, everybody. I'm Mr. McClendon. I am the assistant principal here, and I probably have about 12 other job titles. I'm going to talk for a little bit here. I've been at SET for 5 years, going on 5 years now. And I've been in education for 16 or 17 years. Before that, I was an engineer. If you guys checked our website, I was an engineer for 22 years. And I will probably be talking a little later. And now I'm going to pass it over to Ms. Heath.
Hi, everyone. I am Ms. Heath. You guys, parents, can call me Carrie. I was probably the person that you've been corresponding with, talking to on the phone. Anything you need, any questions you have, reach out to me, email or phone. We're basically here throughout the summer. And that's it.
I should say, which I forgot, most people, including students, call me MC.
Okay, so now you guys got a little bit of a view of what the OWL video conferencing system can do. And so I think this is a pretty good indicator of what we do as a school and how we innovate. And so we've got one of these now purchased for each of the classrooms. And so what we're envisioning next year is that we are going to have some students at school and some students at home. And that's going to be, we'll talk about that a little bit later about how we'll actually figure out who's going to be at home, who's going to be at school, and what that schedule looks like. But the important thing here, though, is that in order for the educational experience to be as natural as possible, we as educators, we need to teach students. We need to actually have people in the room that we're talking to. And so right now, if there were even like 2 or 3 of you parents that were actually here in this room, this would be a completely different presentation. And it would be much better as a result, because we'd actually be engaging and interacting with people live faces, and we'd actually be able to see you really well and be able to see what's resonating with you and what's not. And so what we've done an experiment with the OWL, and we had a teacher. We're actually hoping this is going to show up on NBC7. They did a story on this, but it hasn't aired yet. We're actually what was really cool during that story was that we had a teacher who was teaching my 3 kids, so we couldn't bring in regular set students, but he was teaching my 3 kids in addition to the normal class that he had online. And the teaching experience was totally different. He was able to now like walk around the room. It was so much more natural. It wasn't just a talking head. We've all seen what it looks like when you've just got your webcam sitting on your laptop just staring at the face. It was a totally different experience. And what was really cool was the interaction between the students that were in the room and the students at home. And it felt like a much more natural kind of class. And so we're super excited that we've got the technology to be able to do this. We're really excited that it was within our budget to be able to do this, so these things are not expensive. And I think it's a pretty good indication of how we as a school are always innovating, trying to find the right ways to actually deliver the best education, even when we have crazy things like COVID thrown our way and things are not in any way normal. So we're always innovating, always trying to find the best way to educate. And even that, so if you think about our response to COVID, so we've already had plenty of experience with students doing online independent study kind of work, and we know it doesn't work. For some kids, it's awesome. They love it, and those kids probably should be doing independent study kinds of schools. But for the majority of kids, they need the social interaction. They need the prodding from the teachers. They need to feel like they're in it together with other students. And so we immediately knew that when we were switching to a virtual set, that it wasn't just going to be independent study and we check in with the kids once a week. We knew that we were going to have classes as normal. We were going to have figure out a way to have these Zoom sessions or Google Meet sessions actually involve regular conversations that the kids had in their normal classes, and that's what our virtual set has looked like for the last 3 months. And you know, I think it not only was it important for education in terms of us actually like delivering content to kids, but I think it was also really, really important for the mental health of our students to feel like they were still part of something and still on a schedule and still going to classes. And so there's another example of how we at SET innovate and are constantly evaluating what it is that we do, and we're always trying to do things better. And I think part of the reason that we're able to do this is both McClendon and I are both teachers originally. We both still teach, and I can tell you that there's been so many times during this last 3 months where I was teaching my classes and I was doing it online, and I was seeing the problems that we were having, and that's what led to us knowing that we needed something like this OWL solution. We needed some kind of solution to make sure that the kids felt comfortable having their faces on camera. So we'll talk about that a little bit later, how we've come up with an innovative solution of using just very simple, just a piece of Scotch tape over the camera just to blur the image a little bit so that students felt more comfortable actually being on camera. And so we're always innovating, and I think that's a really, really important part of our school.
A couple of people are saying their voice is cutting in.
Oh, okay.
So it might be their internet connection though.
Yeah, so I just heard that my voice is cutting in and out. So hopefully, I'm not sure how we can correct that. I'll try to talk louder if it's a volume thing.
You know, the other thing too is if there's some parts of it that they can't hear, you could probably go back and take a look at the video when we post that, because then that's going to be exactly how we're saying it right now.
Yeah, yeah. But certainly, you know, feel free to interrupt me at any time, especially the ones who are panelists right now. If you feel like you need me to clarify something, this is not natural at all for us to just be speaking to. I'm basically looking at a camera or I'm looking at the TV, and it's not a very natural way to be communicating. So I'm going to turn it over to Mr. McClendon for a minute here.
I think we're going to talk about this later, but I just want to be sure. A parent is asking, what will the selection process look like for the students who will return to the classroom and not? Like you mentioned, my student definitely thrives on being around others and working with his teachers. We're going to address that later.
Yeah.
Or later in the summer.
No. So I'm going to address it now. I just want to make sure that I've been talking a lot, and so I want to give myself a little break from talking. I was going to hand it over to McClendon, but I'm probably the best one to explain what that is going to look like next year. Just be assured that we're going to address it. And we'll come back to that in a little bit. Mr. McClendon, can you kind of talk about what the student experience is like here? Because Mr. McClendon, in case you guys haven't met him yet, so he is a master at knowing everything that is going on in the kids' lives and being there for not only the students but also the parents. And so I want him to talk a little bit about what the student experience is from his perspective.
Well, part of this is pre-COVID. So one of the things that we pride ourselves on and we do an outstanding job with is personalization, getting to know all the kids, actually not just the kids, the parents too. And so when the kid comes to our school, they really very quickly see that we're family. Those of you that have gone through and done a tour of the school, you may have spoken to some of the teachers, and the teachers will step out and talk to parents, talk to kids. Philosophically, one of the things that we try to do is we try to make sure that every teacher here knows that they don't have just 15 students or 45 students in 3 classes or 60 students, but they have over 200 kids. And they really do live and breathe that. And one of the things that they do is they get to know every student. One of my favorite stories to tell is of a teacher who is out in the hall talking to a parent on a tour, and a kid walks by and the teacher says, "Hey, how you doing?" "Good. So what's going on with your application to such and such a college? Are you still doing martial arts on the outside?" And the parent, after the kid leaves, the parent said, "Oh, that's so great that you know your students." And the teacher turns to the parent and said, "I've never had that student in my class." Right? And that's basically just who we are. With COVID, it was actually kind of interesting because I was still communicating with kids, as was Dr. McCurdy, just checking in with kids, seeing how they're doing, seeing what's going on. If there's kids that I hadn't seen in terms of being on the attendance log, I would video chat with them on there, and it's the kind of thing that once you're here, you're not surprised by it or expected. The kids very quickly get away from thinking that, like in traditional school, when the vice principal comes in, that means most likely you're in trouble for something. But here, it's more of I just want to go talk to MC, which is much, much different. I always tell parents a lot of times that you can tell your child the exact same thing that I tell them, but they'll listen to me and not to you. And that's not because they don't like you, although at times they don't like you, but it's because I'm not their parent. And I use that to my advantage and to my, for the benefit of the child. Okay, Tammy? Thanks, Tammy. So I guess evidently I need to speak a little louder. So that's and the other thing too, from a parental perspective, the vast majority of the correspondence that goes out between the teacher and the parent, I get CC'd on. So normally when you come in here, I already know why you're coming in here. So it really is basically a part of our fabric and part of who we are. That in a nutshell. The other thing, I guess, is a couple other things, which the questions will probably come up later. I'm also Chief Business Officer here. But more important for some of the other folks here, I'm also Athletic Director, although we did have an Athletic Director who went to the police academy, Coach Brown, and joined the police force, which we're missing him. So if you have questions about any of those things, I'm the guy.
So I have a question from Alejandra. She says, do you offer college classes? If you do, are the classes offered in campus or students have to travel to the near college? So a short answer is both, Alejandra. We usually each year have an English 101 and an English 205 on our campus, which is of course super convenient for the students. But then students will also go to Mesa, and we have an MOU with them that the students can take up to 3 classes at Mesa per semester, and of course it's free because they're high school students.
There's a but though.
Yeah. So go ahead and do the button.
You're talking about COVID-19 and the
Yeah.
online. So Mesa College and all the other, well, Mesa College is what we have that agreement with. Starting this year, coming up, their classes are going to all be online. So there won't be a Mesa class taught here, but they can still take the 201, the 101 and 205 class, but it won't be offered on our campus. But that has everything to do with COVID-19 and Mesa College, not because we don't want them on campus. The other cool thing too, and I'll say, Dr. McCurdy is going to say something about that also, is let's pretend like it's pre-COVID and you have the 201 class here. Couple things. One, you need to be 16 years old to be able to take those classes. Two, we treat them like Mesa would as a college class. And we told our kids is that once you step into that door, you're in college now, right? And so, and the kids really got a good experience the last few years with that. But now with them going online, we're kind of waiting to see how that's going to turn out.
Yeah, and that's obviously that's just something that's temporary. It's going to be a little bit helpful for our students in some ways because now when they take a Mesa College classes, they don't have to travel to there. They won't be able to travel to there, and so that means that they're going to get they'll be able to have more options for classes because they're online. So any questions before I move on to what next year is going to look like?
So from Jason, when students are in the classroom environment, what is the expected class size? Normally, the class cap is 25, although on average, it's more like 15 to 20 students. Next year, however, with this sort of hybrid model that we're expecting, it'll probably be around 12 or 13. So hopefully that answers your question.
Okay, so let's talk about next year. So first thing I want to say is that every day I turn on the news, things are different. So I think that's one of the things that we just kind of have to expect as a society right now is that nobody really knows what anything is going to look like a week from now, let alone 2 months from now. And so, I'm going to tell you what kind of our best guess is for what our school is going to look like. And hopefully this is something that is going to work well for all of our families. But just know that, you know, I don't want anyone to think that just because I say something now and then a week from now you find out we get new information that says, hey, you know what, no schools are going to open, that everything's going to be online because that's the COVID emergency that we're in. I don't want you thinking that we're still going to be open. We're basically following the guidelines and health guidelines that are put out from San Diego County Office of Ed and also from the CDC. So, so just keep that in mind as we're thinking about what the next year is going to look like. At the same time, though, I do want you guys to know that we are an independent school. So we are independent from San Diego Unified. And so that means that if San Diego Unified is saying that, hey, you know what, we don't have enough funding in order to be able to have students be back at school for the entire year, that is a San Diego Unified issue. That's not a all schools issue. And so we have our own independent budget. We make our own independent decisions about what our program is going to look like. And so when in doubt, just feel free to ask questions, but just know that everything that I say now and everything that I'm going to be saying until we get really, really close to the actual opening date is going to be up in the air just because of the times that we're in.
You want to say something about them being our authorizer?
Yeah, so San Diego Unified is our authorizer. So we are part of, you know, we certainly interact with San Diego Unified a lot. I just mean that, you know, I know that some parents have been getting nervous because they're seeing things like, oh, the school's only going to be open for half the year. How's that going to work? That's not us. So we are planning on being open for the entire year. We have the budget to be open for the entire year. And our decisions about what school is going to look like are mostly our decisions, with the exception that obviously we have to follow the guidelines of the health officials. So let's talk about what next year is going to look like then. So we've already been talking about the hybrid model. So we know that this is going to be the best thing for our students. You know, just about every student, even the ones who are thriving in the online world, they all want to be back. They miss their friends. They miss the normalcy of school. We're going to have I don't know how long it's going to last, but it's going to be awesome for like the first month or two when schools finally reopen. We're going to be like in this this honeymoon phase where everybody loves school and everybody's doing the right thing. But I'm sure they're quickly going to remember what school was like, and they're going to want to go back home and stay in their beds. So we imagine that we're going to have half the students here on any given day and half the students at home. And so now the question is, how do we decide how we're doing that split? So in some cases, it's going to be a perfectly natural split. So there's going to be some parents who are nervous about COVID. Maybe they've got health concerns themselves, or maybe they're worried about their child having health issues. And so there's going to be some families who are just like, you know what, no way, I am not going anywhere near a school until this thing is totally knocked out. And we understand that, and we will support those families. And so in that case, those families will be online for the entire, for every day, and for the duration of the as long as the disease is still prevalent. So probably for the remainder of the year, they probably be online only. There's going to be other students who have, we've seen that the online world just isn't working for them. Maybe they've got family members who are essential workers and absolutely have to go to school or go to work. And so there's going to be some cases where we've got kids who are probably going to be here every day. And but for the majority of the students, what we're imagining is what we have to do is we've got to get to a place where we can have 6-foot social distancing in our school. And the way that works, and the way that works in every school, is to have half the number of students. And so we've mapped it out. And so when we put chairs and tables in our rooms, we can get about 13 chairs in a room. And that's half the number of students that we normally support. Normally we have 25 kids in a room. So what we're envisioning is that we're going to have a group A and a group B set of students. And so group A are going to go to school on Monday and Thursday, and they'll be home on Tuesday and Friday. And group B is going to go to school on Tuesday, Friday, but they're going to be home on Monday and Thursday. And everybody is going to be at home on Wednesdays. And so one of the things that we've discovered, and what just about every school has discovered, is that this teaching online is really, really, really hard for the teachers. And they need to have a little bit of time to kind of regroup, to make sure that they're giving adequate lessons to the students, and they need that little bit of space to actually be able to breathe. And so that's what the Wednesday is for, is to give the parents an opportunity, the students, the teachers an opportunity to be able to work individually with students. So it's not like the teachers are off, and it's not like the students are off. It's just a different kind of education is going to be happening on those Wednesdays. Yeah.
Couple questions. Several people have asked, will they be required to wear masks in the classroom?
So the new guidelines, and this is what I'm saying about things changing every day. So on last Tuesday, we had a staff meeting, and I was telling the teachers that the requirement is not that, so we would recommend kids wear masks, but it's not the requirement. That has since been changed. And so actually this wasn't last week, this was this Tuesday.
Tuesday, right.
Literally like 3 days ago, the information has already changed. And then on Wednesday, San Diego County Office of Ed came out with their guidelines, and every student will be wearing a mask. And there's there's a few exceptions for students who have asthma or breathing difficulties. And in that case, we'll have to figure out a different solution, like maybe a face shield. And that's just a perfect example of how things are changing daily. And we're all in this world where we're not really sure what's going to happen. My son is actually supposed to be having a soccer tryout today, and that just got canceled because of the governor's order that everybody has to be wearing masks outside now, and so they can't have soccer tryouts because the kids couldn't be wearing masks while they're playing soccer.
So 2 things.
Mm-hmm.
At some point, can you talk about what you think sports will look like next year? And then this question, could it be worked out that kids that carpool can be in the same?
Yeah, so let me finish explaining that situation. So this is going to be a logistical nightmare for us. So please, please, please be patient with us as we try to figure this out. Thank goodness we're a school of 200 students and not a school of 3,000. And so this is really one of the benefits that you guys are going to be getting from being a part of a smaller school here, is that we're able to make adjustments because of our size. And so we are for sure going to be considering carpools. We're going to be considering sibling relationships, and we're also going to try really hard to also consider friendships as well. And but just know that this is going to be one of those things where at sometimes it's just going to be like, sorry, this is all we can do. So we've got to make sure that we're delivering a optimal education to our students. And so if we wind up having, because of the way we split it, we wind up with 18 kids in a classroom that can only support 13, then that's obviously not optimal. We're going to have to all agree to kind of make some changes in order to make it work out. So just know that we're going to do our best to try to solve this crazy logistical puzzle. But this is our goal is to account for all of these different kinds of special requests.
So let me go back a little bit and reiterate something, because I noticed that there's a couple of students that are on here. Wednesdays are not a free day. It's not a no school day. It is, the expectation that the kids will be doing their work and that they will also be getting in contact with their teachers if they need extra help on things. So Wednesday is not, we do not have a 4-day school week. So every student out there, shake your head with me. That is correct. We don't have a 4-day school week. The other thing too that I wanted to make sure that I pointed out is that we are very flexible. Okay, and that's what Dr. McCurdy was basically saying, is that we're going to try to make sure that we're doing things to help you as much as we can. We listen to everybody that comes in the door, but just know that we're going to be as flexible as we possibly can, but there will be some instances where there's nothing that we can do. The question of athletics. I have a monthly athletic directors meeting, of which we don't have another one again, I think until August. There's not going to be, we just had our one in June. CIF, which is California Interscholastic Federation, is moving forward. They're actually an independent body, separated from like San Diego Unified, Sweetwater Unified, all the other unified school districts, and they can, in theory, do whatever they want to do. But in practice, you can't, because if the schools say they won't have their students participating in sports, there's nothing you can do. They are planning for fall sports. They're still trying to work out the details on whether or not there will be fans allowed to come. So in our case, we have cross country that would be coming up. They are planning on cross country starting at the normal time, which is in mid to late August when they're able to start working out. They are allowing the parents to sign a waiver if you can't go in to get a physical for your child. So that's a little different than before. And they are planning for girls volleyball, girls basketball to start up also. We don't have football at our school, so I'm not going to talk to that. The other cool thing I think about our school is that if there's a sport that we don't have and we have enough interest with the kids out there, we will see what we can do about getting a coach and trying to have that sport. The other thing that I think, can I list the sports that we offer? I can attempt to list the sports. We have boys and girls cross country, boys and girls volleyball. There are different times of the year. It's not a sport, but maybe it is. We have bowling. We have boys and girls track and field.
Basketball.
I think I said boys and girls basketball. We've had golf in the past, but it's a little difficult to get enough interest in golf. So this year would have been the first year, probably in the last 4 years, that we did not have a golf team. And every year we talk about a flag football team. Soccer we've had in the past. We don't currently have soccer because there's not enough interest, if you will, to field a full team. The other thing that's different, especially when you're coming from a middle school coming into high school, there are different requirements, health requirements. There's also grade requirements. So there's a minimum GPA that you have to have in order to compete in sports. And I think a lot of times kids think that, oh, if you have a sport, I can just go play. But that's not us. That's the CIF rule.
Oh, tell them about someone asked, can a student play a sport for another school if you don't offer it?
No.
So repeat the question, sir.
The question is, can a student play a sport for another school if you don't offer it? That used to be the case, but they've since changed that. And so we had a young lady who wanted to play softball for a neighboring high school and was not able to do that. So that rule has changed. I have no idea if it's going to change back for next year, but I'll address that with the CIF commissioner to see if they can do that.
Yeah, so just to make it clear, we have no issue with somebody playing for another school, but
Right.
the other schools do.
Yeah, we almost had an individual dive for a different school, and then she decided she didn't want to do it, but she was able to. But that was 2 or 3 years ago.
Is there protocol if a child or a child's family becomes COVID positive and has been to school? Will the school have to close for a set amount of time to disinfect?
So those are, so obviously we're going to be following whatever the guidelines are at that particular time. So currently the answer would be yes. It's possible that the answer would be no going forward. But yeah, we basically, in these kinds of cases, we're not going to have much choice. So we're going to be following whatever the guidelines are and whatever the requirements are. And so that's the other reason why having this hybrid model is so important. We're actually imagining that going forward, even when everything is totally back to normal and we're back to having physical classrooms, we're still going to have these owls in every classroom because this is a great way to support students who are sick. They're still able to connect to the classroom. And so, but in our mind, I have a feeling, I don't want anyone to quote me on this. I'm just saying, based off of the things that I think about and try to plan for. I can imagine that there's going to be times where all schools, the whole city perhaps is going to be shutting down for a couple of weeks at a time, and then we're going to be back in school. And so we have to be flexible to be able to support this kind of thing. And so we've had a great 3 months of experimenting and testing with online education, and we know what works and what doesn't, and we know that we need to get some kind of physical contact back in order for this to really, for education to work well for students. And so we're going to be trying our best to do as much of that as possible, but we're also very well aware that we might be switching to virtual, at the drop of a hat. And just so you guys know, when everybody shut down, we found out on Friday afternoon that all schools were going to be shutting down back in March, and we were up and running on Monday with 97% attendance. And so we did not miss a beat. We're able to jump back and forth between the virtual and the non-virtual, and so just know that that's the kind of school that you're dealing with. So I've always said that whenever I hire a teacher, I'm always looking for somebody that is able to adapt and to be able to, because you can't teach. This is actually a really good example of just education in general. So if you've got a class, and let's say you plan to cover a particular thing in your class, and then all the kids walk in and they're all abuzz about something that just happened in the park. Maybe you need to pause for a second and actually address the thing that all the kids are thinking about right now. Because if you try to, steamroll ahead and try to teach the thing that you wanted to teach, if those kids aren't ready to listen and ready to learn, then you're going to be wasting your breath and wasting your energy. And so we as educators have to be extremely adaptable. And we recognize that in administration, and we make sure that the teachers that we hire are very adaptable. And I think this was a perfect example of us finding success because of that. We didn't have one complaint from any of our teachers. All of our teachers jumped right into virtual education. They were all been innovating like crazy, trying to figure out the best way to reach their particular group of students with their particular subject matter. And so we're going to be doing the same thing next year as we jump back and forth between physical and virtual. And our hope, I don't want anyone thinking that we're a hybrid school. Our hope is that we're back and we have school just like normal, and we've got 210, 220 kids roaming our halls, and everything's totally back to normal. That's what we want. That's what education should be. That's what it should feel like. But we are going to adapt to whatever the circumstances dictate.
So one of the major reason why we were able to move from hearing on Friday that we're going to have to go virtual or not have school at all is because we actually planned for that 3 weeks before that. And so we were not sitting there waiting to see if something happened. We were ready, and when it did, we popped into that and without a hitch, which was great.
Let me add on to that. And this is also, I think, another example of what we do as a school. We had a whole professional development afternoon where we planned, and we used it as a thought experiment, as an exercise. I wanted each of the teachers to think, what would your class look like? And this was a week and a half before the shutdown, when people were still saying, oh, this is not a big deal. It's not going to impact the schools at all. And I said, you know what? I hope that this is just a thought experiment, but it's a really, really valuable thought experiment, because this is an example of how you think outside the box. Let's reimagine your class. If you're a science teacher and you've got labs, how are you going to be doing science labs when you're all at home and you don't have access to those labs? And so our teachers actually went through that process a week and a half before it actually became a reality. And when we had that PD, I was hoping myself that this was just a thought experiment, but I knew it was a valuable thought experiment. It wasn't a waste of time, because sometimes you do have to think about, hey, let's actually look at this whole situation. Let's look at education from a whole different point of view, and let's see, what we might discover, because when we change things, maybe we're actually going to find something that's a better way of doing something. And there's been so many silver linings to this COVID experience from an educator's point of view and from our school's point of view. So a perfect example of this is we are now 100% using Google Chat to communicate with students. And this changes everything for us. So we've always had challenges with being on social media with students, because we have requirements where, we have to make sure, first of all, that we're never put into a compromising situation where we might be discussing something with a student in this private chat world on text messages or something like that. And so we've always had protocols for, okay, if you're going to have any kind of conversation with a student, then you need to make sure that you CC an administrator at the same time. And now with this Google Chat world, we're forced into Google Chat. And what's beautiful about Google Chat is everything is logged. And so there's no secret messages that are happening. Every conversation that's happening between any staff member and any student, we can always go back and rewind and make sure that everything that was discussed was above board. But this is now this new tool that's making it possible for us to very easily communicate with students. And we're envisioning that this is going to be a tool that we use throughout the regular school day once everybody's back at school. Right now, before COVID, if I needed to talk to a student, I'd radio a teacher and say, hey, when you get a moment, can you send the student down? And then 5 minutes later, the kid would wander down. Now with Google Chat, I can just send a quick little text message to the kid and say, hey, by the way, I want to talk to you about this when you get a chance. And then when it's just that asynchronous nature of the communication makes it so much easier for us to communicate and be present for our students.
So one last thing I wanted to mention is to make sure that we have your correct email addresses and phone numbers, because especially with all the things that are going on with COVID, we send out communications all the time. And so we want to make sure that you're getting that communication. If something should happen at school or change and we have to quickly go into complete virtual, we'll send out notifications. So make sure that we have the right information out there for you.
So are there any other questions about what next year is going to look like?
No.
I'm sure there's tons of questions, but.
Most of these I'm just typing answers to, but I did have someone who asked, is there a parent-teacher group? So maybe this is a good time.
Yeah, let's,
Tim?
Yeah.
so we're gonna bring Ms. Vegas up as a panelist. So she has spearheaded the first year of us having a set parent association, and they're actually a legal entity now and raising money and did all sorts of cool things. So Tammy, once you're on, why don't you take it away and introduce yourself?
Hi, everybody. This is a little odd for me. I am Tammy Vegas. I have currently 1 student left at SET. I've had 2 others graduate, 1 just last week. I am the president of our parent association, kind of like a PTA, but we didn't really want to go the PTA route. We are going to start fundraising hopefully in September if we get to go back to school. Maybe if we can have the park. Dr. McCurdy?
We want you to have it.
Let's hope.
We're hoping to have the park in September because we would like to host a back to school barbecue for all of our new students, our current students, and our family, just to get to know each other a little bit better. I'm always open to ideas on fundraising for our students, our teachers. We're going to help the seniors this year a little bit more than we did last year, and work with them to help them fundraise more efficiently than they did last year, and not try to scramble the last 30 days they had a chance to fundraise their money for their Disney trip.
Hey, Tammy,
Yes?
Ms. Heath is going to post your email address in the Q&A section. Can you give that to us so that we can make sure parents can get a hold of you?
Carrie, do
Because,
you want,
Go ahead.
just use the SET one.
Yeah,
Is that-
remind me. When it is,
Oh, I'll text it to you.
Tammy. Okay, perfect.
I can do 2 things at once, I think.
Parents, let me say one more thing. Parents, your children will say that as a school, we don't need your help and don't come in and help. You're crazy. Help us. We always can use your help.
No, they're not kidding. Like, teachers need the parents to support them, not only with helping with like assignments and work, but teachers need help going. Oh, I just got told my TV's on. Hold on.
Oh, Zoom meetings.
Sorry, I had a parent text me saying, Tammy, there's music playing in your TV. So I just turned it off. They need their help, whether it's helping take kids to field trips or maybe just sitting in a classroom and helping with an assignment. Our teachers still need us to step up and be there for them. Yes, they're high school students and they are a little bit more mature, but they still need help, from fundraising to dinners, field trips, papers, showing up to listen to the seniors do their ROKs. We still need to be there for our kids and our teachers. Our biggest fundraiser for next year is going to be our gala, crossing our fingers. We had to cancel it this last time. Sorry, Carrie. We had to cancel it due to COVID, but we're excited to do something in the fall to like kick off the school year and get us started off right. That's really it, Neil, unless parents have questions for me.
And one parent asked me about carpooling. And so a good way to connect with other parents is to join the parent Facebook page. So find that, and who approves that?
I don't think there's any necessarily, well, actually, I don't know now.
What?
The parent page, you have to be approved. It's like it's a closed group.
Yeah.
The set parent group?
Yeah,
That
on
was Coach. That was Coach.
Yeah, that's what we're saying. And Coach is now officer.
No. Camden. Carrie, talk to Camden.
Okay, I'll talk to Camden. Thank you,
I think
Tammy.
I think he has ability to add people.
Okay,
Okay, yeah, but so obviously
Any
he's
parent,
graduating, so we need to make sure that that gets handed off to somebody else, so.
and I have a parent saying, is there anything other than a Facebook page? I deleted my Facebook profile. I don't know if you're already signed up to receive Dr. McCurdy's emails, but he sends basically weekly emails that have everything you need. And then we also have a platform that Dr. McCurdy created called Core Competency, which will be your dashboard to your students' activities, grades, classes, everything here at SET, and you'll be given access to that.
Yeah, and a little bit later today, we'll actually give you a little preview of Core Competency, just so you can see what you should be seeing, because we're always surprised that, 6 months later, 7 months later, parents still don't know about it. And so there's lots of goodies in there. So I want to make sure that you guys, before you even start, know what you should be seeing, so that if you don't have it, then you can make sure that you can get access to it. One of our biggest challenges as a school is trying to find the right communication mechanism, because everybody's got different needs. Some are on Facebook. This is true for students as well. Some like text messaging, some like emails. And then on top of all that, we also have the issue that because we're a school and we send out a lot of emails, we also are wind up in people's spam filters, because there are people who are no longer part of our community who have graduated, and rather than saying disenrolling and saying I don't want to receive this anymore, they just click on the "this is spam," and so then we get flagged as spammers. And so so just know that I'm going to show you some examples of the kinds of communications that you should be getting. And if you're not getting them anytime during the school year next year, know that the messages are probably going in your spam filter.
And they can just sign up on our website, right at the bottom. That's what.
So the core competency stuff, probably next week. So we're still trying to close out this school year. So probably next week, we're going to enroll all of your kids into our system. And once your kid is in there, then you're automatically going to start getting emails from Core Competency saying, hey, by the way, there's no parent that's registered for this child, so please click here. So it should be pretty straightforward for how to connect. But if that email is going into spam, you'll never know.
so Dr. McCurdy, if parents will email me, we can get them on the Parent Association newsletter, and it's going to go out monthly. So if anybody wants on that, just use the email address Carrie posted, send me an email, and I'll add you to our email list.
Yeah, and all this information will get repeated multiple times throughout the year too. So don't get worried that you're going to get left out of something.
Couple questions. Will there be temp checks when kids are here?
Yes.
Yes.
So temperature checks coming in. And so this is another example of what it's like to be part of a small school. I was just reading about how much time it's actually going to take to take 3,000 students' temperatures at the larger schools. And so they've got actual blocks of the day organized for temperature checking. And so so this should be pretty easy for us to do a quick temperature check. They are contactless temperature checks, and we've been trying to find a thermometer that actually gives you accurate temperature checks. We're going to, basically what we're going to know is we're going to know that, ooh, you're a little bit warmer. We should probably do a follow-up, and that follow-up will involve contacting the parent.
Are we planning on having clubs in the fall?
So clubs are, so one of the things that we're having to do is we're having to reinvent what school looks like. And so this last 3 months has been mostly everyone kind of hoping that things were going to eventually go back to normal. And so, some of the clubs continue to happen. My guess, Tammy, if you're still there, my guess is the Dungeons and Dragons Club, that they're probably still doing stuff online.
Yes, they are.
Yeah, so in some cases the clubs continued. We're going to have to be, we're going to have to make sure that we find a way. If this is our new normal, we're going to have to find a way to make sure that kids have ways to engage with each other and to interact with each other outside of school hours. That's in a or during school hours. That's a good, effective use of their time. So we will have clubs for sure.
What is lunchtime going to look like?
So lunchtime, so we didn't talk about what passing period and all that other stuff looks like. So we have to somehow make sure that the kids have 6 foot social distancing throughout their entire day. it's, you know, there's going to be times where there's going to be a possibility that barrier has been broken, and that's why we're wearing masks as well. So that's why the mask rule is in there. So what we're imagining for passing periods, so first of all of our hallways are going to be one directional. So you're always going to be walking clockwise. So even if you right next door, but it's happens to be in the wrong direction, you're going to have to walk all the way around the hallways in order to get to your class. So maybe kids will actually increase their step count a little bit, which would be good. So the process of actually like doing that in between classes is going to be a little bit of a challenge. Lunchtime, we're pretty sure that with half the students here, we've already got multiple places where kids can go for lunch. And so this room that you're seeing right here, this is called the Den. And so this is where you think that most kids are having lunch, but it's actually not the case that most kids are having lunch here. We've got kids that eat at the tables out in the front of the school, and we've got kids that eat in individual teacher classrooms as long as the teacher is okay with them being in there. And so we're pretty sure that there's going to be enough separation. So I've been reading the things that have been saying that kids are basically going to be coming to school and they're just going to be sitting in a chair for 8 straight hours, and they're going to be eating lunch in that same chair. I don't think that we're going to need to do that, but obviously safety is going to be the thing that is paramount here. And so, and it's, you know, in addition to safety, we've also got teenagers who are teenagers and are, you know, some are going to be thinking that all of this stuff is ridiculous, and we're going to have, you know, huge educational, you know, first couple of weeks of training students on what the new normal is at our school. But we're pretty confident that lunch is going to feel pretty normal just in terms of the setting. We will continue to provide lunch to the students who are here, for those students who either qualify for the free reduced lunch, or for students who would like to purchase lunch. So those options will still be available here.
Did we already talk about how it will be determined which students are here versus which?
So it's first crack at it is going to be, we're going to do a random divide, not alphabetical, just like randomly put them in group A and group B. And then we're going to see what that looks like in terms of how that balances out the classrooms. We're going to then start doing all the, hey, these are siblings, let's get these guys in the same group. These are carpoolers, let's get them in the same group. And then the final check will be to see if there are friends that, because, you know, the school is very much a social environment, and nobody wants to go to a place and spend all your time in a place, especially when it's school, where you don't have any of your friends. And so we're going to try really, really hard to make sure that the friend groups that we know of are supported. But I think this is also going to be a really interesting time for students to realize that just because they have been friends with one particular set of students, that doesn't mean that that has to be their set of students, and so, or their set of friends. And so, so I'm gonna encourage them, you know, if they've got one friend, if they've got at least one friend in their group, then I think we're gonna say, I think we're good. But I know there's gonna be situations where like, these 4 kids have to be together, and the world's gonna end if they're not together.
So it's possible that all students will be able to attend 2 days a week?
Yes. Yes.
So one of the things that Dr. McCurdy mentioned, for those of you that are, I assume it's probably the vast majority of you guys that are new to our school, he mentioned going to the park at lunch. Our campus is a closed campus, and we always have an adult down there at the park when the students are eating down there, and there's out of bounds areas and stuff. We make sure that they all know where those places are, and it's either going to be me, Dr. McCurdy, or Ms. Heath who's down there at the park with the kids. So it's not a free-for-all. They can go and do what they want to do.
Yeah. So my guess is that the outside areas are probably going to be the most popular ones next year, just because, you know, obviously if you're able to be far away from people, then you can remove your mask temporarily. So I think that's going to be something that people are going to be really, really happy to be able to do. So at the same time, though, we as a staff, we don't want to be spending our whole days like on mask patrol. So it's going to be a delicate balance. And so the more that you guys at home can kind of reinforce, regardless of what your views are on wear a mask or not wear a mask, in order for us to operate as a school, like, you know, the worst case scenario, somebody already mentioned it earlier, the worst case scenario is that we get a COVID outbreak in the school and we have to shut down. That's, you know, that ruins it for everybody. And so we're going to be trying our hardest to make sure that we keep our students safe in the school. And we're going to be doing, you know, all kinds of disinfecting. The teachers are all going to have the ability to disinfect in their classrooms. We're going to be ahead of the curve in the disinfecting front as well, I'm pretty sure.
So I just, Marcia just asked me this question, and I just said in what context, but she doesn't type back, so I figured we can just talk about it. She says, what are you doing to address cultural and racial differences, multiculturalism?
Okay. So good question. So I know that we're in very you know, delicate times right now, but I want to start by saying that we already are a school that is built on acceptance, and so I don't know if you can see the right behind Ms. Heath. You see that right now, the I will wall. So we are already very much at the forefront in terms of making sure that all accepted. And we certainly, you know, our view is that every kid on this campus is extremely important and extremely valuable. We do everything we can to make sure that every kid is supported. That being said, so, you know, we are very aware in these times that there's a very specific group of students or group of treated, and so the Black Lives Matter movement that is very prevalent right now, and so we as a school certainly believe that we want to make sure that we're supporting those students and those families in this time. So let me. So I'm going to move over to Ms. Heath's. I'm very bad at doing two things at once. So the chat session is going to stop for a second. I just want to make sure that I show you guys what core competency looks like, just so you can see what kinds of things are available to you.
So one of the things that he's going to show, which is really critical, because parents ask a lot about their kids' grades and their assignments and things like that. You can actually go in here and he'll show you, and it'll show you where they are and, you know, the assignments that they have.
They're saying that's showing the same one there. Okay, we're going to try this. This might work, this might not. So I have no idea what you guys are seeing. Can somebody tell me what you guys are seeing? You seeing anything useful?
No, Marcia's shaking her head no.
How come we can't see what they're seeing?
Okay, so the problem here is that we've got a split screen here, so I'm going to have to switch this to be a single screen. So things are going to go crazy for a second for you guys, possibly.
Dr. McCurdy, it's now up on the screen.
What did she say?
It's not up on the screen.
It is up on the screen.
It is?
Oh,
Yeah.
You can see.
Yes.
Okay,
And then you can see it from the demo.
so you can see me scrolling through core competencies?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. Okay, so this is an example of what core competency looks like. So the first thing that I want you guys to notice is that current grades are shown here. So this is actually pulling from Google Classroom. So the Google Classroom is the tool that teachers use to input grades. And so, for example, we can click on Algebra 2 Part B here, and all of the assignments are in here. So this is probably not too different from what you guys are used to seeing in other schools. The only difference is that this is a Google Classroom view that we've exposed. And one of the frustrating things with Google Classroom is that it's a really, really cool tool for teachers and students. but not so good for parents. So parents were always excluded from it. And so we found a way to have that view actually shown to parents. There's also, so here's some example of some of the, so it says most recent messages. And so you can see that here's an email that I sent out. And so even if your emails are going to spam, you can always go into core competency and see the messages that I've been sending your way. And this is also next year going to include emails that come from teachers, specifically about student grades, and then also messages that are about, you know, if you can, you'll be able to register alerts. So if a grade goes below a certain level, you get an alert. So all those messages will go here as well. Notice here it says change SMS settings. So you guys have the ability to, let me get that off because that's my cell phone number. You guys have the ability to register for text alerts as well, as do the students. The report cards are on here as well, so you can see most recent report card, and then you click through, and it also has the entire transcript history. So that's all on there. Some of the things that we want to encourage students to do. So for example, we've got our setup goals. So you guys probably heard about this on your original tour. So setup stands for social responsibility, effective leadership, tenacity and grit, uncertainty is opportunity, and passion, performance, and purpose, passion, purpose, and performance. And so it doesn't just help for us to talk about those things if the kids aren't actually doing things to actively think about how they're growing in those areas. And so you can see this student has an entry in for social responsibility. And so it says, I have been and still am volunteering at the Science Fleet Center in Balboa Park. This year I supported my girls basketball team by being their team manager. Then we've got tenacity and grit, currently struggling in volleyball because blah, blah, right? So they're actually actively like trying to think about how they're growing in these different areas. Community service, also something that we want to encourage our kids to achieve 150 hours of community service. So you can see so far the student has achieved 23 hours. And so here's the example of some of the community service entries that the student did. And so this is, so if you ask Tammy, so this is like this whole dashboard section didn't even exist at the start of the school year. And so we're constantly innovating, constantly trying to make sure that the things that we want our students to be focused on are actually supported by activities that the students are doing. So I want to pull up another student. I'm not sure if this is the one. Yeah, so here's another example. So we've got passion projects that the students work on. And so here we've got a student whose passion project is writing a play. Write at least 2 acts and not fail this goal like last time. Also keep motivation throughout writing it and not lose it again, right? So I love the honesty that the kids have. But what we've learned is that if the kids are not pushed to actually do the things that we talk about all the time, then they might not actually achieve them. And so it's been really kind of cool. So Tammy had mentioned the ROK, that's a reflection of knowledge that the students do at the end of every year. And it's really cool that this year, the amount of things that our seniors had done to fill each one of those, the setup categories, the social responsibility, the effective leadership. In years past, we used to get things like, oh, I'm not really sure that I'm a leader. I can't think of anything that I did. If they've been thinking about it for 4 years, then that's not going to be the kind of response that you get anymore. They're actually going to have legitimate responses to all those things. So anyway, if you are not, and just so you know, so the other things that are in core competency, so this is where you sign up for meals. And so it's not going to be super exciting right now because there's no lunch service at the moment, but we go back to February and you can see the lunches that were here. So this is how students and parents would sign up for meals. We've got a scores section, so you can actually see how your child has done on the standardized test scores, on the PSATs and things like that. So all any information that we think is relevant to parents and students and that we want to surface and have everybody be aware of so that it helps motivate students to achieve more, all those kinds of things are going to be here inside of core competency. Oh, and then finally, there's a fitness tracker. For students who, the first year of PE is a class that is mandatory here, and that's with Ms. Geis. Every kid should get to spend as much time as possible with Ms. Geis. But the second year of PE can be replaced with either sports or bowling, or if it comes down to it, then we have a fitness tracker where they can keep track of steps, and so that's also on here as well. So anyway, don't be one of those parents who discovers 2 years later that core competency exists. Try to get on it as soon as possible. At a minimum, you're going to want to be on there so that you can see your students' grades. I'm trying to find one more example of a student. I can't remember why I wanted to see the student. Okay. Oh, just the community service. So this student, because community service is surfaced here. Here's an example of a student who got 350 hours. This student just graduated and got 2 red cords. So got honored at graduation for achieving not just 150, but over 300 hours of community service. So if you don't surface the stuff, then it might not actually, the students might not be encouraged to actually achieve it. And then the final point that I want to make out is that, or point out, is that we as a staff use this all the time to get to know our students. And so I'm always looking at their setup goals to see what things that they're doing. And you can see here that it says show random student. So this is my little tool that I put in there because I wanted to be able to click on it and just say, hey, let's, sometimes you wind up seeing the same students. So maybe the students were in trouble, or maybe the students were super outgoing, and you forget about some of the students who are quieter. And so by forcing it to show a random student, I don't want to click on that now because we're going to actually see real students if I do that. But you can just like suddenly have a new student that you might not have thought about in a while surface, and you can check their grades, and that's, leads to another conversation with that particular kid. So I think that is, so I'm gonna, so let me stop sharing my screen. And I'm gonna give the computer back to Ms. Heath so that she can check to see if there's any final questions. And feel free to unmute yourself if you're a panelist and want to ask any final questions. If you're you can raise your hand if you're an attendee. We can promote you to a panelist if you'd like to do it that way. So it should have popped up on yours. When yours right there. Kids get a laptop. Okay. So Ms. Heath is still, I closed all of her windows on her by accident. So she's, but I did just see one of the messages pop up. So the question was, should kids get a laptop? So we do provide laptops to all of the students. We do not require that they use a school laptop. So it is a bring your own device school. So if, it's not going to go to waste if you give if you buy your kid a laptop, but you don't have to.
I can't find the chat thing, so sorry.
Oh, let me try to find it. Sorry,
Dr. McCurdy, one of the questions is, when will the freshmen get a chance to pick their classes?
Why don't you answer that?
Okay, so for the most part, freshman schedules are pretty set. As you get older, you'll get more and more opportunities to
choose electives and things. But freshman schedules are pretty much set. There are going to be a few choices for you. What will happen is in July, I will be emailing each parent individually with my proposed schedule for your student, so that you can make sure it looks okay. And then there will likely be at least one option for an elective, and I'll send you those options. So expect to start hearing from me in July around that. We're just trying to close out this school year, getting transcripts for seniors and all of that. So once I get that done, you'll be hearing from me.
And somebody said their questions aren't being seen. I think it's at LB.
Yeah, we've got them now, so we'll go through them now before we close out. So one of the Q&As that I just saw was a question about freshman retreat. So that is obviously going to be one of the things that's going to be harder for us to do this year. We are going to try to do it if we can, and if we can't, then we're going to have some alternative that hopefully will be as good. So one of the things that I think is kind of innovative about our school is that we always try to make the most of the situation, and we try to, you know, if it can't be the same as what it was, we're at least going to try to find something that's going to be as good. And so a good example of that is our graduation. I think our graduation turned out really well this year. People were really nervous about having a virtual graduation. But I think in some ways it actually was better than our other graduations, just because of the intimacy of actually getting to see the students in their homes, and the kids could be there with their families celebrating, and it had this extra intimate feel that our graduations don't normally have. And I'm hoping that we can find some way to bring that element of it back into our regular physical graduations when we do have them. So anyway, you know, I know it's going to sound really stupid right now as I say it, but let's hope that there's going to be a way that we can actually make this work. I'm imagining some kind of Zoom-based, you know, day-long. It might be a little bit weird having an overnight, so I don't think we're going to have an overnight Zoom-based party, but some kind of series of team building events that happen over Zoom. And we're going to have to be thinking out of the box a little bit. Mr. McClendon is not much of a camper.
Not at all.
But so I'm thinking that maybe I'll hand this off to him, because this is finally a time when he can actually support the freshman retreat.
That's true. Yeah, I'm not a camper guy. My idea of camping is probably a 4-star hotel or something that has a golf course attached to it. But yeah, I think that is one of the beauties of what we do here is we sit down and we try to figure things out. We try to make the best of every single situation, and just sitting here thinking about what can we do for team building. And that's the most awesome part of the freshman retreat is we get a number of freshmen who don't want to go, who eventually do go, and then talk about it, you know, at their ROK or 4 years later about how great that was, that they were able to bond and connect with the other kids here. So we will figure out something between ourselves and the freshman teachers. It's one of the things that I was going to mention real quick when you're talking about, when someone asked a question about scheduling classes. They're going to all have to take English, of course. They're going to all have to take class. Their English teacher is going to be Ms. Gibson. Their math teacher is going to be Mr. Odegaard, and their leadership.
Hey, Mr. Odegaard, can you unmute yourself and say hi? I heard that you're on.
If he is still on. And their leadership teacher is Mrs. Geis. So they will have those teachers for sure. Odegaard, are you still there?
Okay.
I'll text him.
So any other questions that we can
I think
address?
he's having PE.
So the PE is called Strength of Mind and Body. That's with Mrs. Geis. So that's a PE and beyond kind of class. She also teaches a leadership class that all freshmen take. So freshmen.
PE and health.
PE and health, yeah. So that class is required because we as a California public school are required to offer a health class. And so that's included in Ms. Geis's Strength of Mind and Body. Any other questions?
Here we go. We kind of already talked about this. Will there be after school?
Yeah.
There'll be virtual probably. Do we require uniforms? We do not require uniforms. Will incoming freshmen need to retake Algebra 1 if they took it last year? We actually were just talking about this. You want to talk about that?
Odegaard's coming on.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, so let's talk about the Algebra 1 situation. So, so 4 or 5 years ago, I guess it's 5 years ago now, when the state of California switched to Common Core, Algebra, a lot of the content that was in Geometry and Algebra 2 got moved into Algebra 1. And so what we've traditionally found is that the middle school treatment of algebra has not been sufficient to give the students the baseline that they need for to be successful in geometry and Algebra 2 and pre-calc and calculus. And so we do offer, so it's not going to happen during the summer, but very early in the first week of school, if there's a student, you're like, hey, my kid is a genius in math, and this is ridiculous, I don't think he should be in algebra. We do offer the ability for a kid to test out of algebra. It doesn't actually give that much benefit though, because the most likely scenario anyway for a kid who's that gifted in math would be that they would be in the accelerated algebra geometry combination class, and so they'd wind up ending their freshman year with geometry. So if they don't take algebra and they jump straight to geometry, they'd be in a year-long geometry class because that's the only other geometry option. And so they'd wind up ending freshman year with geometry anyway. So it doesn't really help too much to accelerate. And just so you guys know, almost every situation that we've had where, you know, I've had parents who say, hey, my kid took algebra in 6th grade. This is ridiculous. They shouldn't be taking algebra. And when we actually give them the algebra final, because we say, okay, well, as long as they get a grade of a B on the algebra final, then we can move them into geometry. Oftentimes the kid will like quit the test halfway through because they realize that they haven't actually learned all that material. So just know that in the math world, things got all upended with Common Core. And it's possible that the middle schools have finally caught up and that the material that's covered in 8th grade algebra class actually is Common Core algebra, but we haven't seen it yet. One other thing about math, in case people are worried about math acceleration. So if you end freshman year with geometry, the normal path then would be sophomore year, you're taking Algebra 2, then you're taking pre-calc and calculus as a junior. So you still you're done with calculus by the time you're a junior. So then your senior year, you're taking college math classes. There's not really much point in accelerating beyond that. So we've got a couple of families right now who are in discussions about, hey, is there any way that I can, you know, jump ahead and not do Algebra 2 next year and take it during the summer? And that's, Algebra 2 it's a hard class and there's a lot of content in it. And so the idea of we've already made Algebra 2 be a year-long class because so many students were having trouble covering the amount of material in half the year. And so the idea of taking this whole year of material that our teachers have a hard time getting through an entire year and cramming that into a summer, and you being ready for pre-calc and calculus, which are two really, really hard classes, I'm not sure that's a really good choice. And there's no reason to be doing that as a sophomore, because then you've got 2 years that you're going to be taking college math classes. And you certainly don't want to, if you're that gifted at math, you don't want to not be taking math, because the whole reason that you're getting that accelerated is so that you can be at an engineering field or a science field, and you don't want to have 2 years of math gap before you go into an engineering class. So anyway, I think it's something to certainly you want to be aware of, but we've got plenty of kids who are plenty gifted in math and accelerate just fine, even if they start with algebra.
Mr. Odegaard, are you there?
Yes. How's it going? I'm driving to see my grandparents right now. So
Hi.
they're in El Paso. this will be the first time they get to see our kid, so this will be cool.
Nice.
But yeah, I'm Ryan Odegaard for all the new parents coming in. I'm the math teacher for Algebra 1 and Geometry. And I kind of want to reiterate like how Neil was saying, how we're a small school and we can adapt to all these different changes. Same with our math class. You know, everybody has different learning styles. So with smaller classes, we're able to adjust the way the classes run. And so everybody can learn however they want to learn the best way. And with I came in right when you were talking about the advanced students, or like I had with the semester-long algebra that turns into semester-long geometry, there were some really advanced students in there, but then also in my year-long class, I had some really advanced students in there that were also freshmen. But I think the way to get into the geometry as a freshman is to have already taken algebra before that. But either way, the semester-long class, I mean, it was nice to see that class work together because everybody in that class was a really strong math student. They could feed off of each other, and everybody looked at the problems differently and could understand everybody's perspective. So that was a cool thing to see. But yeah, does anybody have any questions for me? Or
So before that though, let me make one comment about math. So one mistake. So I happen to be a computer scientist. McClendon's an engineer, and so I speak from experience when I say these things. Math is not something that you want to try to. It's not like a set of facts that you're trying to get as quickly as possible. Math is, you know, there's, especially as a teacher, and so I've taught math as well. Especially as a teacher, I've been so amazed at the things that I've learned as a teacher about, you know, simple concepts that are taught in like elementary school and middle school that were never really reinforced because I either wasn't ready at that time to really understand the deeper meaning behind what was going on, or because I was so intent on just like learning the next thing. And so you know, for me personally, with my own kids, I'm perfectly happy to, I never accelerate them during the summers. I want them to continue getting math, you know, getting better at math, but I never accelerate them. I actually put them back 1 or 2 years and have them reinforce the more basic concepts, because if you don't have those foundations really solid, it makes the more advanced classes super hard. So, so anyway, that's just my,
yeah. Yeah, that's one thing that I realized too. Like, I mean, growing up, I was always pretty good at math, but now that like I'm teaching math, it's really interesting to see if you understand how positive and negative numbers interact with each other, then it's like that helps with harder concepts if you just understand what like just the basic concepts are. So yeah. And then like it's not just about getting all the math credits. It really is about learning the material, and so that when you do get up to the next level, you do have a strong base. And yeah, the way I like to teach my class is that like there's obviously a lot of procedural, like if you're subtracting 4 on one side, you have to do that on the other, but then also just understanding what the concepts are too. Like when we talk about perimeter, I'll say that it's the length around the shape, whereas some other people might say that you just add up all the sides, and when you get to like a rectangle where it only gives you 2 sides, you need to understand that it's actually all 4 sides and it's the length around the shape instead of just adding 2 of the sides. So I mean, that we try to go through all the different ways to look at the problem so that you have a full understanding of the whole idea.
So I guess you parents out there probably didn't think that you're going to have a math lesson on Saturday morning.
Kind of ruined everybody's weekend, huh?
About the math. So my son will be transferring in to his sophomore year, coming from Catholic school, and the diocese hasn't adopted Common Core. So he's already completed his Algebra 1 requirements, but going into Algebra 2 as a sophomore using Common Core, do you think that he would be behind?
I'm not teaching Algebra 2, but I don't think that he would be behind. But is he coming in and taking geometry? Is that
He'd be taking geometry first.
Yeah.
So the sequence is algebra, geometry, then algebra 2, just so you know.
So
Yeah.
he should be okay.
Yeah.
And I think one of the other things is, so we always do a pretest early on in the semester for every class as well. And so if there's major gaps, then we'll identify those gaps early. And you know, if it's so severe that we think he actually needs to repeat algebra, then that can be accommodated. If it's just a matter of shoring up some skills in the class, that can be accommodated. So we're about making sure that kids are educated, and that's kind of our major goal all the time. So obviously we want to graduate them as well, and we want to make sure that they're earning units and getting as many credits as possible and getting as you know, looking as good as possible for universities. But really our main goal is to educate.
What
Dr.
school-
McCurdy? Go ahead, Mr. McClendon.
What school is your son transferring from? You said he was in a Catholic school last year.
Mater Dei?
Oh, okay. Do you live out there?
No, we actually live in Kearney Mesa, and they went to K through 8 just at St. Columba right there in Kearney Mesa.
Okay, because I live probably 3 blocks from Mater Dei. So I was going to eliminate, so that when parents say, oh, it's just too far, I say I do that every day.
It's too far.
Dr.
Tammy, you have-
McCurdy? Yes,
Go ahead.
there's been a lot of questions about our special ed team and IEPs. As a parent who has students that have had IEPs, our special ed team was amazing when the schools all got closed. Within a week and a half, I had my amendments done to my IEP. I was able to sign online. They still received their services. They still received all the help they needed. If they needed extra tutoring, there was somebody there. So for parents who have IEPs, don't worry, don't stress. Our team has got you.
Thank you, Tammy.
Yeah, that's an awesome endorsement.
I love you guys.
I am biased, but I put our staff up, our special ed staff, our staff in general, gets any school anywhere. One of the things that for sure the 3 of us here today do is we get to know every student, and we know every student in the whole school. So I think that's one of the things Dr. McCurdy was talking about earlier, is the fact that we can look at a student and know that something's a little off because we've had conversations with the student. And so it's not a bad thing when they end up in my office. It's not necessarily for bad stuff, but our special ed team is phenomenal. They're led by Mrs. Romero.
And if you ever need chocolate, go to Mr. McClendon's office. He always has candy in there.
That's a true statement.
Yeah.
That's a true statement.
All right, so it looks like the questions have dried up on the chat. So if nobody else has any other questions, I think we're good to go. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us on this Saturday morning. And hopefully this was useful. I apologize that we can't give you solid answers on you know, exactly what next year is going to look like, but hopefully you understand that we're, you know, every school's in the same situation, and but hopefully you've gotten out of today that we are well positioned to be able to handle whatever gets thrown our way.
Thank you, guys. Appreciate your time.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Bye,
Thank
guys.
you. Bye.
Oh,
Okay,
so Ms. Heath is still answering questions on chat. So,
but you guys can go ahead and sign off, and we'll get that out there.
and we'll mute ourselves here. Thank you, everyone.